Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to a special episode of Stat Pack for Anfield Index. What a week it's been, what a month it's been. Real Madrid were vanquished the other night, Manchester City visit Anfield on Sunday. We've got the stats, we've got the info, we've got many things to think about, and most importantly, we've got the doctor himself in town. Bart, how are we at the moment?
Good, mate. Good. I mean, a little bit down on the news that's just broken, but yeah, otherwise pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, just in case you have missed it, ladies and gents, Dave Seacott broke it a couple of hours ago, I'd say now, very recently, that Ibou Konate is set to miss 5 to 6 weeks. And we've also seen an Instagram post from Ibou himself saying trying to come back stronger, which pretty much seems to verify that news. It does not sound like one or two, fortunately. He is going to miss pretty much all that busy Christmas period. I mean, we've talked about it a little bit off camera and who can come in and all those types of things. How big a blow do you feel this is, Bart, honestly?
I mean, he's been sensational, hasn't he? He's probably been, I would say, him and VVD have been the best two defenders in the Premier League, bar none. There's some very, very good defenders in there, but these two have been head and shoulders above anybody else. I think he's a huge loss because of the aerial ability that he adds to the back line. You know, effectively, we are strong in both boxes because we have two monsters in the air. He's also covers space really well. He's quick on the turn. All these things that we need to make our system absolutely tick. You know, as you saw against Real Madrid, we'll come on to one of the tactical tweaks was only possible because of Konate could match the pace of Real Madrid on the counter. So I think it's big. But then I will caveat that slightly by the next 3 games is where it's at. If we can get through the next 3 games, then the rest of the fixture list, touch wood, is manageable because the level of opposition drops off some way. And that's not dismissing it. There's no easy games in the Premier League. You'll win them all to win the league, and I get that. But if we can just get through the next 3, which is really tough turnaround, you've got City, followed by a midweek at Newcastle, followed by a 12:30 against Everton on a Saturday. That is a really hard set of games. If we get through that unscathed, I mean, we were saying 7 out of 9. I'm going to be greedy and say 9 out of 9. I think we're in an exceptional position for the league. We're already in a fantastic position for Champions League. Then we kind of manage it. But as I said, the next 3 games are going to be tough. And the bit that we don't know yet is how bad Bradley and how bad Costas is. And you might think what you chat about, they're not centre halves, but they affect the rotation that we have to do in fullback because Gomez is also the cover for the fullback at the moment. Gomez is the next in line. So, this is really going to stretch Slot's managerial ability. He will probably have to play Kwanzaa at some point. And it's whether he can bring him back into the fold with confidence that he becomes the player he was, funnily enough, at Newcastle away last season, and not the player he ended up the season being. So, I think, there's no getting around missing a quality player. I think the timing of it, you can manage a 1, but currently we've got 3 defenders out. And that is... That's hard for any side to manage. But Joe is a fantastic understudy. His points per game with VVD is one of the best in Premier League history. Yes, it was only for a small run, and I know it's been a time since, but last season he played his highest amount of minutes for 4 years. So it suggests that his injuries troubles were behind him and he was getting back to form. So I trust Joe to be able to do it, but three games in short space of time is a tough ask of anybody when they're coming off the back of playing 20 minutes here, half an hour there. It's going to be tough. They're going to have to regulate training to ensure that the load on the players is managed, particularly Joe. And you might see the things we don't like doing, which is substitute a centre half at the end of a game, but we might have to relieve some minutes, So I suggest that to get the best out of these 3 games, he's got to start Joe and VVD.
Yeah, I think that would be most people's. As much as Quansah did so well at the end of last season, it does seem to have been a bit of a confidence den, and it's a big ask to come back in, especially against Haaland. And we know a couple of seasons ago, Gomez alongside VVD did the job against Haaland as well. So yeah, I think everyone's expecting, you said, Gomez to come in, but also praying we really can't afford any more injuries in the defence, especially as it's looking very, very strong. Fingers crossed over this period, no doubts about it. But rewinding a bit, Barts, let's go back to an epic Wednesday night. I mean, Real Madrid, Europe, let's undersell this, European royalty. For a few injuries, there's still the likes of Bellingham and Mbappe, huge names on the park, Modric, Camavinga, you could go on, etc. And at the same time, we made them look pretty average, especially that second half. It just seemed, I can't put my finger on it, and I hope you are going to sort of identify it for everyone. There almost felt like there was a tweak or just something, but the crowd were alive second half, and the team just seemed almost better equipped to sort of deal with Real, get through them more easily as well. So I am intrigued to see what was sort of the shift that's been identified from the first to the second half there.
Yeah, I think if we look at the picture, I mean, top line, one of the things that we can point out for us defensively, again, reinforcing how good we are defensively this year. Did it on UP last night. The pod will be out in a moment, but normally we talk about threat to XG conversion being a measure of how good you are as a side attacking. Now, the stats we give on the pod normally includes all XG, and it ends up being 100% us and 112% for them. So, fairly equal. But if you take away the 2 penalties, we actually go to 140%. Converting our threat to XG, and Real go drop to a measly 40. So it shows you that outside of those penalty situations, we were extremely dominant in turning our threat into XG. So that's a really important point to make, that we identified areas where we were going to attack, and we did them at pace. Now, if we look at EPV, which is that threat measure we're talking about, for those who don't know, expected possession value, or in Opta terms, XT, expected threat, which is a value assigned to a position on a pitch, which you are expected to help increase or decrease the chances of you scoring from the resultant move. Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing to note, just before I go into that, this game here featured our highest percentage of very high passing chains, as in over 15 passes in a chain, that we'd seen for, I would say, nearly all season. Normally, we have a split between all 4 categories of low, very low, and medium. This one, we kept really long chains of possession, particularly second half. So that bears out in that kind of possession on ball, which is why we were able to generate threat. We look at our tables here. I will just try and increase that for viewers so they can see that. If I click that one out. So this is our full game. You don't really get a lot from that. The red area is more red, the more high percentage, the more threat recreated. And the faded numbers is the opposition. So you get an idea about where we're targeting. But the beauty of what we can do with this is we can look at it for up to the subs and post subs. But as you asked the question, first half, second half. So first half, that's not a bad picture, if I'm being honest with people. We've got 12% left-hand side, 17% in Mo's area. The half space usage is good. It's not brilliant, but it's good. We're generating through the wide areas, which is what we've typically done all season. Okay, we've typically come into areas in the middle here, in the zone 14 and before, gone out, either got through, going out wide, and then coming back in. Okay, that's generally what we've tried to do. But we look at, you asked me the question, what happened second half? Yeah, the percentages go through the roof. Okay, so what we've got here is we've now got 19% in the left half space, which is typically where Curtis was operating in second half. Okay, and his combination play with Diaz latterly, Cody, and Robbo, you can see that on some of the past metrics we can come to. And the right decreased a little bit, but we increased the threat in the half space versus the wide channel. So we shifted our threat creation more narrower into the half spaces. And some of the reasons behind that was that we would we'd pull it out wide. We'd then bounce past it back into a half space. So we're forcing the DM, Camavinga, for Real to do a lot of tracking after spending the whole first half doing that. And then you're asking Modric, Real's oldest ever player, to do the same thing, come over to support. And then we'd flick it, bounce past into the other half space before going back inside to go into the box, into the area, which is exactly the move that happened for the McAllister goal. We built up, left, came across, Bradley bounced past it, McAllister's in, scores with a first touch finish. So it's that change in that movement of threat higher up rather than being in the middling area. We moved it into the final third, really helped turn the screw of Real Madrid for a 10-15 minute period after half time, where we effectively blitzed them and probably should have been 2 up before we even get to the missed penalty and the header going forward. The other thing to note from here is I was going to show you the passing to demonstrate our passing volume here in the second half. These are the half space channels. Blue is successful, red's progressive. So the red, we have a high volume of progressive passes in and around these half spaces and zone 14, which shows you how much we were able to pull Camavinga out, get back in there, and then play a ball in the box. If you do that, your chances of scoring are exponentially higher than from any other zone on the pitch. It's why zone 14 is called effectively zone 14. I think it's like 4 times the highest, the rate in which you can score from that area. So that's one of the tactical tweaks we made at halftime to do that.
That's insane. Yeah, it's interesting you said that as well, because a lot of people, and I don't want to be dismissive of him because I thought he was brilliant, all sort of pinned it on Conor Bradley and his work and him bombing on more. But it is interesting. It's the other side of the pitch in that half space where we start to pull them around. And you mentioned Camavinga. I mean, he was running everywhere. He went off with an injury, didn't he? It looks like he tweaked his hammy, I think, was his injury on the night as well. So we obviously, in the nicest way, we put him through the ringer. So it does tell so much. And this one, Bart, I want to ask you, because man of the match, the stats say, just for anyone that missed it, Conor Bradley was the official sponsors man of the match. Do the stats, do the profile back that up for you guys as well?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Conor had an amazing game, right? I'm not going to dismiss his performance. He was up against arguably one of the top 5 players in the world, right? And the guy who, on the night, recorded a speed of 35 kilometers per hour. You know, that's a phenomenal speed. Conor matched it with a tackle. Yeah, so that breakaway, which got the crowd going, was that both of them recorded their highest top speeds. And Bradley was the highest top speed for Liverpool that night. So a hell of a performance, you know, dual success, 45% against Mbappe. Yeah, that you're just not going to get 100% aerials. You got carries. He carried it to the final third 25% of the time. His touches, sort of in and around the defensive mid-third, which is what you'd expect. He also picked up just trying to think, he's a touches in the penalty box. Penalty box. He was in there 3 times for a fullback, which is decent. Same as Robbo, but very, very good. Final third, 22. So the things we look out for in these kind of things is, what did he do with it? How did he create a threat? And that's where I would genuinely look at that and say, I would offer a slightly different opinion from my man of the match. So Robbo here created 21% of our EPV, our threat on the night. That's because largely he was taking corners as well, right? So you're going to create slightly more threat from those areas. He had a good game as well, but I'm just saying there is a reason why he was up there. Conor helped create just over 6% of our threat. He received the ball really well. He didn't lose anything, but he only created 6%. Okay, his pass success 84, which is slightly down. The player that I think people missed out on, or maybe we just take for advantage now, but Mac, he, considering he doesn't take set plays, created 28% of our EPV on the night of that threat. Okay, he had a 94% receiving success. His pass success was 91. He had just under 10% of our total possession. If we look at sort of more of the off-ball stuff, McAllister's dual success a little bit low for him, but he was 58% of his touches were in the middle third, final third. He had some penalty box touches, which just off the scale well. Curtis as well had 11 penalty box touches for a midfielder. That is extremely high. And if you look at his carries, his through the thirds, defensive, middle, progressive, they're all in a very good number. His errors were 100. So CJ and Mac, for me, were outstanding on the night. And as much as Bradley gets that praise, and he rightly so, without those two doing the work in the left half space and in zone 14, Bradley wouldn't have necessarily had as much impact. And I think what Bradley was doing was occupying a centre half to enable us to free up Mo, who then literally, I mean, you could have called time on the poor fullback in the second half. Mo had absolutely destroyed him. Yeah, and that's only come about because Bradley is in that space, occupying the covering player that would have gone over the shut Mo up. So I think Bradley had a role. It just might not have been as much on the ball. And my final thing on this, I mean, people know that in the stats part, we have a wagon wheel, normally just in this format here. But because we're doing a special tonight. So Brad is here, nice and big for you. The black dot here is generally the positional average, okay? So he exceeds positional average for Jules. Great night. He was playing against Mbappe, yeah? You want him to have that. But all on the others, he's kind of below or on the average for things like aerials, ball time, passes, possession, right? So it's a kind of a good performance, but it's not an outstanding performance. And obviously shots, he well exceeds the positional average because all the other fullbacks don't think had a shot between them. So Bradley had a header and a shot, right? So that's where that comes through. So again, not a bad pick for man of the match, and I'm not knocking him. Local lad, shut down one of the best players. But McAllister, for me personally, along with CJ, if you look here, Mac exceeds the black dot, which is positional average on all the metrics. And the amount of threat he produced, as I said, was outstanding in terms of our team. And without him ticking the ball over as he normally does and threading those passes through and scoring the important opener, I don't think we get the result the other night.
Funny, innit? I think people almost like, when you look back to the Southampton game when he was on the bench, you just forget how much of his control we miss almost when he's not there, just that ability on the ball. It's a brilliant finish. And I think you've summed it up there, Bart, because I'm going to be talking about this with some of the lads on Sunday. The biggest takeaways from me, and you can tell me if I'm summing this up wrong, seem to be, as much as the talk, and quite rightly, Conor Bradley, really good performance, but that left half space, that's where we pulled Camavinga out. That's where we got our joy, got into zone 14. Like you said, Bradley also occupies that defender or the inside. So Mo can really, as you say, destroyed his fullback, didn't he? But so much good specifically was done by CJ and Mac in the middle, especially down that left bit. Is that a fair assessment?
100%. And I think that's that, for me, our ability to occupy those three channels, if you like, zone 14, the left half space and the right half space, dictated that second half. And Mac and CJ were on the ball, phenomenal on the night. Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, they were absolutely sensational. There you go. If you haven't listened to it, ladies and gents, Up is out as well, so you can listen to the full sort of stat pack breakdown, but well worth doing. And for this one, I mean, you can almost taste this game already, can't you? Sunday, Manchester City will come to town. So we'll do like we always do, people. And I will assume the role of the educated professor, and we'll pretend there's a Freaky Friday style role reversal for this one very, very shortly. So City come to town, and you look at their last three, defeat to Bournemouth, that 2-1, they weren't great in that. And even looking back, Bart, you see the last five, they were just about winning, weren't they? Remember that Southampton at home, everyone expected. Southampton missed chances, Bournemouth beat them. Belabor especially came on and turned them around, didn't he, for Brighton? They were 1-0 up in that. And then Feyenoord isn't on here. The 3-3 draw the other night from 3-0 up. But that 4-0 destruction. I mean, it's strange to say, ladies and gents, because we're talking about Manchester City, and we all know about Manchester City, but according to the form table, they're pretty much 19th in the Premier League form term. So, that works for us as well. This one, Bart, I've like this one, and I do want to talk about this shortly. We all know about this guy. We all know about the threat this guy brings. If you look at the goals for the other things, like Doku and Savino, one between them. And then you'll think, yeah, but City have got goals in their midfield and their other attackers. Look at this. Look at all the zeros. I mean,
Yeah.
Bernardo 0, Foden 0, Nunes 0, De Bruyne 1 midfields, Kovacic, and he's injured. Literally, if you go up as well, Cavadiol's the second highest scorer on 3, the left back, and he pinged some worldies at the same time as well. It's just insane, their stats. And then you look at them as a general form. They have got wins. They've definitely got those losses. These are very good in both senses. 22 goals is decent at this stage. We're 24. 17 conceded, though, Bart. That is the one that really will give people hope. I don't think there's a single person putting money on a goalless draw in this one at all. There's going to be goals, you suspect, in this one as well. Yeah. And if you look at the history as well, look at this, people. 1-1 last season. Do you remember the penalty from McAllister and the non-Doku penalty on McAllister? Yeah. And we probably won't go too much into VAR and all the things going on here. And then, funnily enough, the last time at Anfield before that, 1-0, it's that breakaway where Mo absolutely spins, if anyone remembers, Cancelo. Yeah. And who keeps Haaland quiet that day? Like a certain Joe Gomez. Yeah, he was brilliant at centre-back. So I suppose from the retail stats, and I don't quite think I'm going to have earned my doctorate on the basis of that, there's a lot to like, isn't there, really, in general, the stats in that sense?
Yeah, 100%. And I think you're right to say that City have been on the rope since about Fulham because they've been conceding a high amount of XG and big chances. You know, I think Fulham may conceded something like 6 big chances, which was absolutely ridiculous. I'm just trying to find it here, actually. There you go, Fulham. They won the game. But they conceded 2.6 XG, and that's at home. That's an incredibly high amount. We go down to, I don't know whether they got big chances on the main bit. I don't want to work it out myself, but I have to do it. But so 2.6 XG at home, and then if you look at the latter games, they haven't managed to keep that level down. So their ability to not concede high volume XG and high volume big chances has been a concern for anybody who's City, obviously. You know, anybody else, you know, fair play. It's City, isn't it? It is a problem. So I would 100% suggest, and if we go back to the games going forward, so their XG from, where did I say, Fulham, so 2.6. Wolves, fair enough. Sparta, yeah. But if we go Bournemouth, they conceded 2 XG at home, 2.9 against Sporting when they got beat. Wow. Brighton, 2.3 XG, 2.5, 2.2. They have not. This is the City side that usually give you nothing. Like they're not a sniff, right? When Rodri's playing at the top here, 0.3, 0.7, 1, 0.7, 0.7. He gets injured, then the numbers start creeping up. You get the odd performance, but to be frank, you know, there are games and City quality comes through. But latterly, in this run here where they've got beat and badly, League Cup, they don't really measure XG. They've not considered below a 2 XG. Now, you give us 2 XG to score and the associated threat that we will create with that, I back us to score 2 goals. I really do. Yeah. If you look at the Real Madrid game we just had, and that's Real Madrid, who are in better form than City. So Real Madrid gave us 2.7 XG, which includes a penalty. So you're down to about 1 point somewhere else, below 2 XG, basically, without a penalty. And we scored 2 goals. So for me, I think there are some issues with City. The other thing that City are going through, it's been starting to come in a mainstream now. We've mentioned it a while in AI and on UP. They can't run. Yeah. They can't run anymore. And we suffered that in post-quad season where the midfield basically fell apart. The team stopped being able to run. And if you have systems as Guardiola and Klopp, and most modern managers do, you need to be able to run, to cover the ground, to do your pressing, to do your organised movements. Things like in the Real Madrid game, these are our defensive actions going forward. You can see the volume of work we are doing. up to first subs. And then post first subs, we drop off to try and save energy. But if you can't do the initial bit because you have no legs to do it, you're not organised off the ball. You're out of sync. You're not getting it back in the air as well. And I think City are going through that period. I'd never write them off. They've averaged 91.2 points over the last 7 seasons. They know how to get to 90 points. I think around 90 will win you the league this year. So I'm not writing City off because they can turn that around. There's enough points to do it and then go on that run. But they are in a sticky period because they've not got any midfielders at the moment that I don't think can manage the intensity. And if we go there with our intense 3, which I think we might do, Dom, Mac and Grav, because I think CJ's played till the bounce now. So I think you'll get a performance that we need. And Joe knows how to beat City. He just knows how to do that. He knows what he's got to do. And as much as all the injury concern and the rest of it, it's just about getting through the next game. And then we worry about the next one. And we worry about the next one. And the big stat that I found out today, this is the first game in 287 Premier League games that City are not favourites with the bookies.
Wow. 287. Christ, that's about 8.5 seasons, isn't it, realistically, in the Premier League as well? That is just absolutely insane. And it is interesting, like you said, because I was going to start to ask you about wider trends, and I was going to ask you for us, but it's interesting, especially that you mentioned City's XG. That's consistent. That's a run of games, and where 2 or more XG is there, and they're conceding late goals a lot as well at the same time. So there's a lot to like from that. I suppose the final bit on this I wanted to ask you, Bart, because I'm sure it's going to come up with you and the Up Boys. Has there been any other sort of wider trends around this period, or anything you think it's worth calling out at all that you've discussed on Up?
I mean, I don't want to increase or light the tinderbox anymore, but City's and Arsenal's performances post-Champions League this year have been the poorest, the worst for about 3 years. Typically, they'd come out and they just win. But if you look at their results post a Champions League game, they've suffered a draw or a defeat, or they've scraped hard. Like Arsenal against Leicester, they got a last-minute winner, but they had to fight for it. Arsenal seem to have found a bit of form, but typically, following Sporting, they got beat by Brighton. Sparta Prague, they then suffered against Southampton and only won 1-0. The Slovan Bratislava, they then struggled against Fulham and only just won 3-2. So the Inter 0-0 away in Europe and then drew with Arsenal. Now I know that's Arsenal, but still their performance hasn't been right after playing the Champions League. So I think it's just something to look out. Arsenal are suffering the same thing in their Champions League, and they've started to sort themselves out. The fans would say, we've started to get our players back, that's why, but yeah, whatever. You just got to learn to deal with it. But so Arsenal post Atalanta drew to City, post Paris Saint-Germain, then scraped past Southampton. Shakhtar, they drew with us. Inter, they drew with Chelsea. Yeah, so there's a pattern there as well. They're not picking up the massive amount of points post Champions League game, and that is a bit of a trend that's been going on all season.
Wow, some big trends there. And hello, 12th man said Jude is more of a stats guy more than an eye merchant. So interested to hear what Dr. Barter has to say. 12th man, you've pretty much missed the lot. I'm literally about to wrap it up, in all honesty there. So just in case you do miss it, you do want to listen or watch it back, what did we digest? Real, some great call-outs from Bart. That first, second half, especially, that left half space, that was where the damage was done. Jones, Diaz, Mac especially was a real shout for man of the match, as the stats showed. Camavinga around, running the legs off an exceptional but a 39-year-old Luka Modric. So that was absolutely key. We looked at City as well, didn't we? An XG of over 2 consistently now. That really is. So you'd be disappointed if Liverpool didn't plunder a few goals. Listen, we just want to win with no injuries, but that was a key call out we made as well. If it's not Haaland, they do seem a little shy and they do give up chances. There's no two ways about it. And then the final one, let's just keep an eye on City and Arsenal after the Champions League and how that run goes on. And let's be honest, we hope City absolutely stink, don't they, after Sporting? Because that is us on Sunday. But we will see what Sunday brings. So the final word to you, Bart. Sunday, City at Anfield, 4 o'clock, under the lights, 8 points ahead. It's not a stat question. Are you excited for this game, Mo?
Oh man, I'm always excited for City in town. I love the games over the years, apart from the COVID behind closed door. But yeah, this is what it's all about. This is what being in a title fight's about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of lied when I said final question because 12th man's wedged one in there. Does Dr. Bart see this game to have a high number of corners and goals as a possibility? Could we see that?
I think these are always cagey. If you look back at the history, bar the early Klopp 3-2, 3-1 games, it's been like 1-0, 2-1, that kind of thing. So I would suspect we'll be at around that. And equally, slot sides this year, we've got to, if we get to 2 goals ahead, we just sit back and sit off. We're not pushing for any more. So I would be surprised. Corner count, yeah, I think about average. I wouldn't say anything more or less than that. But no, generally in terms of goals scored, I would expect somewhere around what we're generally used to seeing now, which is the 2 mark, I would suggest.
Which, yeah, would be with me. And wouldn't it be good if we were talking about a victory over City where we could even use Dan Kennett's favourite phrase of garbage time next week in the mix? That would be absolutely brilliant, wouldn't it? So we will see. But there we go, ladies and gents. We are at the end of Stat Pack. We've talked Real, we've talked City. Let's hope we are finishing this on a massive, massive positive. All it leaves me to say as ever is, Bart, for the insight, the stats, the information, it's much appreciated.
No problem.
And ladies and gents, that was a Stat Me Pack. We'll call Stat Pack. I'm still flipping around with that, but we'll call it Stat Pack for Anfield Index.